All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. What it do, what it is, what's happening with the business bees. Your guy Nate, back with another extraordinary episode of the Extraordinary Exchange Podcast, powered by the Extraordinary Investment Group. With 12 Black men, enriching the financial futures of our members and the communities we service through education and smart financial strategies. I think we'll cover both today. We'll cover some financial stuff. We'll definitely be educating you on a dope individual story you'll get to hear. But I got my co-host Benz. What's good, Benzino?
Another good week, another good guest. We here. How you feeling today, Mr. Bennett?
Yeah, man, I'm phenomenal, man. I got some bright colors on just to represent how this individual lives in living color boldly. Got the pleasure of being introduced to her a few years ago through a previous guest, Mtokafa. Shout out to him. Birds of a feather, y'all cut from the same cloth. But she is a boy mom. I'm gonna start with that because that's definitely how she identifies. I couldn't give her an intro without paying homage to that first. But she's an artist. She's a digital director for the state of Maryland under the 63rd governor of Maryland, Mr. Westmore, who interestingly enough will tell a dope story about how that came to be. But anyway, Canadian American.
That's right.
Afro-Caribbean Canadian American, right? Did I cover everything? There we go. So she'll definitely talk about that and those roots. Again, artist, podcaster, just overall dope individual. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast, Miss Erykah St.
that's so nice. You said it kind of French. I like that. Erykah St.
Oh
my God, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I'm Erykah St. I really appreciate the great intro, Nate. First and foremost, I'm a human. That's like my proudest thing, like human Black person in North America, but yeah, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Welcome. So you have a story to tell. This podcast conversation is going to be so influential to so many people. I'm not even trying to big it up. Like y'all listening right now, y'all are in for a treat. So yeah, just kind of give a brief synopsis of, who you are as a human and what you do. What kind of, landed you here on the pod today?
Right. So as Nate mentioned, I'm a Canadian American, which is a very unique genre of Canadian, or both of a unique genre of Canadian American. So I was born and raised in Montreal, and 14 years ago, I moved here to Maryland. And so America is my new home, and Maryland has been my home since I left Toronto. I went from Montreal to Ottawa to Toronto, and then here in Maryland. So Maryland is a place where I have become an adult and grew up. In Canada, I did my undergrad studies there. And so I studied graphic design. And that's my background, design, marketing, all of that. But my professional life in design has been mostly in the humanitarian space. So for several years, I worked for an international humanitarian organization. And I traveled the world telling stories about the work that we're doing on the ground. And it was the same kind of work that I'm doing now for the state of Maryland, digital storytelling, taking pictures, putting graphics together, writing scripts, all of that stuff. But it was for places around the world, and I really, really enjoyed that. But I also wanted to get to know more of where I was living, my new home, Maryland, so I've always been curious about government work and, the federal contracting space. And also was also curious about politics a little bit. Coming from a Caribbean family, as you mentioned in my intro, I'm from Canada, but my parents are from Trinidad and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so I'm a first generation Canadian. Shout out to West Indians. I'm a first generation Canadian. And so I have like all this like crazy identity in me because it's these English Caribbean people came to Montreal, French city. They don't speak French. So they had to learn French. Then they had these children who are English children in Montreal, but their parents are West Indian. So at home, it's like West Indian vibes and all of that. French on the radio. These Caribbean parents try to speak French. It's just like, it was like a whole mess. So yeah, my journey to America just has been interesting. And I really just wanted to lock into the life here in America, because I've had all this mix. So I did a little stint as a government contractor, working on really cool projects, web projects, digital projects there. I've always been interested as a graphic designer in more than just like the images and the photos, but just how everything comes together from a comms perspective. Visual communication is like my passion. So when social media, IG, Facebook, all this stuff started popping off, I just developed my skills as a designer. So from working as a government contractor in the Fed space, I saw this opportunity opening up here in the state of Maryland. I saw the campaign. I just had a good sense that if things were going to go in this direction, there's going to be a whole new wave of opportunity. And myself, as like a person who's really passionate about digital transformation and like, you know, being an artist in politics and seeing what that was like, I said, okay, let me take a stab. Let me put my name in the hat. If there's an opening, let me put my name in the hat to see if my resume would stand out, or, you know, if they're even thinking about digital stuff. And so that's really my pathway to where I am today. And just a little bit along the way on a personal side, I started out as a, you know, I got married, you know, fell in love, got married, all that jazz. And that didn't work out, and got divorced and became a single mom. And so when I started I had a podcast, I still have it. It's hibernating right now, but my podcast is called The M Word with Erykah. And I started it because I was so excited about being a mom, and I super love motherhood. I'm one of those women that's always wanted to be a mom. And so I started the podcast, I was a mom, but then I became a single mom, you know, got divorced, the marriage didn't work out. And so I transitioned, you know, in that journey. And that was really difficult. And I'm still transitioning, but I would say now why I'm also here is because I'm able to now talk about it. You know, it was a bumpy journey from having one idea of how I thought life would be as a mom to a totally different idea.
Oh yeah, we often talk about that on this show about how the transitions of life supersede your plans, what you got going on. So a lot of times you think life is going this way, and life turns right left on you, and you got a brand new situation going on. You still got to maintain and keep on going what you got going on. So we know all too well about that whole situation ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's
Just,
life.
the time's going here. Okay, gotta go.
It's life. It's life. But let me ask you this though. So, based upon your story, what you said something that sparked the idea in my mind. I feel like a big issue we hear in the community is, well, what's the government doing for us? And so you had a very critical point of showing real life examples, painting a real story, a real narrative of what the government is doing in everyday life. Can you kind of talk about just the ways that you're able to communicate the stories, the message that you want to do, and how you can highlight the things that are happening on the political side, and how it affects the common person every day?
This is a great question. Well, one of the things that we're doing is getting testimonials when we go to different visits, when we go to different places, when the governor is visiting different, you know, sites and whatnot, we get testimonials from people. We actually have been interviewing people and having conversations with them about, you know, their opinion, you know, their impact, if everyone's impacted by something the government does, whether it's like positive or negative, you know? And so one of our things along the road behind him has been to collect these testimonies. Does that answer your question?
Oh no, it does. And that firsthand testimony, the firsthand experience, the firsthand story of this is what I've seen goes very far. And like I was saying, I feel like because the common narrative is always, we don't hear the actual daily stories of the way the government has helped us. I know personally for some of the small business initiatives that have been going on in the state. So it's like, but those kind of stories from those business owners need to be heard. You know what I mean? Firsthand, this is an initiative that came out. This is what I did with it. This is how it helped me. And so you're doing that job is very critical for the regular working 9-to-5 person who doesn't see that firsthand, to hear that story firsthand from a person who's experienced it. So that's a great way to do it.
Like, I was picked because, and several members on my team were picked because we are great storytellers. That's how our mind is wired, you know? So we approach the content like that. We approach every scenario, every event, literally every event with, what's the story there? What are we taking a picture of? What are we taking a video of? Who are the people there? You know, and sometimes it is to just show the people in the room. And a lot of times it's also to uncover the story, uncover the impact. We're living in a time where it's really easy to suss out the truth and error. Like it really is, you know? And so, because you have multiple cameras pointed at a situation or what have you. So we really go in with that mindset of like, what's the story here?
But we're also in an era with a lot of misinformation out there. How do you combat that?
Mm-hmm.
You stay hard on your truth. You stay hard on your truth. There's always going to be misinformation. There's always going to be the counter every time. That's guaranteed in life, you know? And so we're living in an age where it's massive amounts of information. So it's going to be massive amounts of truth and massive amounts of error and massive amounts of gray information as well, you know? And so people who have the truth, it's their job to keep trumpeting the truth.
I heard that on the Angela Rye podcast. Angela Rye was
Oh,
talking
really?
about that.
Oh, wow.
Just about how because she's so close in the political scene that she feels it's her job to give that Black woman's perspective that you're not going to hear from anybody else. Sometimes maybe ostracized for that, but because she has the truth, she feels it's her job to put it out there. So I just heard her say that.
Totally. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like as a Black woman, when you get to that place in your psyche, in your spirit, when you know, oh, I got the truth, you're like, I'm good to go. And then you're affirmed by other Black women, because like other people may affirm you and that's cool. But when other Black women affirm you in your truth, and it doesn't have to be a whole army, it really could just be 2, 3, whatever. But you're affirmed by two other dope Black women, you're good to go. That's the power of the Black woman's affirmation. She actually doesn't need a whole army of people to affirm her. She could just need one dope other Black woman to say, go for it. And she's good to go.
And y'all do it in so many different ways. It's dope from the outside looking at you. Sometimes y'all ain't gotta say nothing to each other. You just be like, yes, and all that. Yeah.
This is DNA. It's just like it's DNA. That diaspora thing. The diaspora thing is so undeniable. I super believe in it because I'm from Canada and I'm now an American. You know, my native land is Canada, but I'm an American now, and so I know for a fact that the diaspora thing works. And knowing that my mother is not from North America, and she communicates in the same way, it's just like, okay, it's just a blood thing.
Yeah, for sure. So you talked about how you're a visual communicator, and visual is so important. And we talk about the truth and the gray and the falsities out there. Like what techniques do you do when you are storytelling to maintain authenticity in those stories? Because nowadays, like good, feel good, just authentic stories sometimes aren't what gets pushed to the front. It's the salacious stuff. Yeah. It's the triggering stuff. It's the messiness. Yeah. You know, so we got a whole industry with reality TV and info blogs and all that. Like, how do you tell an authentic story and keep the main thing?
Well, I think what we use is like a researcher. That's a big thing. Like having a dedicated researcher behind you is really important, because they dig into the nooks and crannies of stories in ways that a writer may not have the time to, or designer may not have the time to, you know? So following up on the facts, the literal facts that may be mentioned, or following up on this person was mentioned, who are they associated with? And then who is that person associated with that person? You know, it's like going like layers deep. And that is what sets good information apart from bad information, because the curator of that information went like layers deep before they actually put that stuff out. You know, and if you have a big team, then you could have multiple people researching multiple aspects to the thing. You could be researching the people, and you could also be researching like the facts of the situation, or the story that might be coming from another source. So in communications, it's good to have multiple sources that you're pulling from, so you're not reliant on one pool. The problem with the age that we're in right now is everyone's information is curated to their own interests, and they feel as though it's coming like this is the truth. It's all, this is what's been told all day today. But it's like, no, that's not really true. That's just your glasses.
Perspective, yeah.
And then like your perspective from this publication's perspective. It's not truly global because you are not you're not including opinions that don't match yours. You know, like when you look at who you follow on social media or your blogs that you follow or your news sites that you follow, it's probably people that you agree with. So you're not like totally challenged. And so good researchers also look at the other angles, you know, like what if this is wrong, or what if we're wrong? They can take neutral position in different positions. So that's one method that we use that is very reliable.
And then just talking about the representation, you being in
Yeah.
that position, having the ability to share more story. I mean, just for me personally, like I'm sitting here about to put together this girls basketball clinic for like girls here in Northern Virginia because I've been coaching my daughter and I'm trying to push the women's game forward. And I took her to her first WNBA game years ago. So me like being an advocate for girls developing in a sport, I wouldn't have had this same level of fervor if I wasn't a girl dad, right?
Ah, that's awesome.
You being in that position, being able to tell Black women's stories and from your perspective is so influential and so profound. So how do you do that,
Mm,
but also don't have that supersede the actual story, if that makes sense? How do you keep the story the main focus as opposed to being so adamant about showing it from a Black woman's perspective, right? Because you're
mm,
telling a story, you're telling an authentic story. Yes, it's from your perspective, but you don't want that to be the overarching theme of that story, right? Because a lot of times you
yeah.
lose people when it's so like, you know, Black woman, Black
Mm,
woman, Black woman. I want to show it from this perspective. It's like, all right, yeah, we get it, but like, what about just the story?
And I'll
So
even before you answer, I'll
there
even
might
double
be an
down on
even
that.
balance, right?
Before you answer,
mm,
I'll double down that covering a Black governor
Mm-hmm.
who still wants to win elections, still wants to be publicly acceptable. How do you show? I guess what Ben is trying to say is how do you embrace those aspects without shunning the greater population?
There we go.
yeah. Well, I'll start by saying this. I don't think we can ever achieve complete satisfaction of that.
Mm.
Period. You know, so it's like it's never gonna be like, oh yeah, we satisfied. We did it. There it is. The pie is done.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I'm the digital director and there's a team of us. There's a team of 5 of us in a larger communications team. So my opinion is my opinion on my perspective and my lens and my view is always 100% going to come from being a Black woman because that is
Mm.
literally what I am. I
Yeah.
cannot separate myself. I can never take I just can't do that, you know? Maybe some people do that, but I can't and I won't. But I'm smart enough to know that my opinion and my view is one view. And I know that it's like gonna come. I'm biased. I know that I am. You know, I have biases. And so that's why we have other people in the room with other perspectives and other storytellers. There are other storytellers in the room, literally. You know, I'm not the main storyteller. It's a group of us that make that is the storytelling, you
Mm.
know, and every time you see content coming out of our office, it's a group. It's the group of minds of storytellers that have come together, and it's the Black woman's perspective in their yes, and there's a Black male perspective in their yes, and there's a white male perspective in their yes, and there's other
Mm.
perspectives in there. Um, and I really super believe in that. Coming from Canada, I will say that is something I would love to see more in American life, in American politics, in American art spaces, everywhere in America. Just more of the American mind opening up to the other voices that is not necessarily white and Black.
Mm.
Like I'm not just a Black woman. I'm also a
Mm.
French woman because I'm from Montreal. So when I'm in the room, I'm also like multilingual is in here. There are times where I'm advocating for another language. Like recently we did some videos for the emergency management department, and we tried something new by having the governor speak in Spanish for something, and he was actually fumbling on it, and we were going to cut it because it was like taking too much time, but I was like, no, we're actually going to go forth with it. We're going to do it until he gets it right. Why? Because I know there's a huge population in Maryland that speaks Spanish, and in America.
Yeah.
I know at some point in America, Spanish is going to be the second language officially. And so, let's meet the people where they are. But folks in the room who don't speak another language are not thinking about that. So that's what I would say. Like, it's not just about like the one Black woman perspective. As a good communicator, you know that, and any Black woman communicator knows that. I think that's one of the things that also makes Black women great at communications, at tech, at that stuff, at arts, because they know that there are like multiple things that need to come in here to make it great.
I just love good communicators, period. I have better conversations and dialogue with great communicators. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great questions, guys.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: did you work while working with the previous organization? Did you have political aspirations? Like this was, but the politics something that you always wanted to do?
Such a great question.
How did that transition happen?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I would say I was always curious. The curiosity was there because coming from a Caribbean household, and your listeners who have Caribbean roots can totally relate to this. Like, they're just so political, and they're just so like always discussing matters of the day and fired up about it. And my household was like one of those where they got CNN, MSNBC, Fox, all of them going all the same time, BBC, every single one. My parents know about the news in Chicago and LA. So I always have that context like in my mind. Even as an artist, it's like, yeah, I'm into art, I'm into design, all of that, but the political thing is sort of there. And then, just being a Black North American, like, I just feel activated all the time anyway, so it was a curiosity. And then being in the federal government, I was working as a federal contractor, and I was working on HHS.gov and USA.gov, and it was cool. But honestly, I was like, okay, I feel like I've reached the heights, but what about the state level? Like, what's here? Like I dabbled at I sort of, my curiosity got kind of tasted a little bit. Okay, cool, we dabbled, but there's another dabbling that I could do, so it was, yeah, my curiosity. I just needed to satisfy that. And in some ways, I'm also like living my dad's dream. It's my dad's dream to be in politics, and or was his dream to be in politics. And he's that guy that's like, oh yeah, watch that one. That one is gonna be, that one's gonna be, So Governor Moore was somebody that I was watching from even when he was a speaker. It was like, ooh, okay, he's a potential, okay. And then when I saw the campaign, gaining steam, and I was at a place in my career of like, what am I doing next? What I want to do? I was like, let me keep my eye over there. Maybe that's a space. And that's how that went.
There we go. So and Nate knows the excitement that you spoke about the political process is something I have myself. I'm always following everything that's going on, and I feel as though that's an important. I feel like a lot of people get turned off by national politics and don't keep into the local and state politics that really affect their everyday life that they should be, especially in our community.
You're right.
As a communications person, do you have any ideas about how to bring the excitement, bring the understanding, to bring the want to of people to really get involved in the process, to understand the process on that local level? Because that's the point of contact that most people have, but they're not involved in it to really make the changes that they want to see.
That is such a great question. That's a tough question. Like what comes to me first is like, politicians need to be more interesting. Like, honestly, that's the first place, like straight up. Right. So like, I imagine some of your listeners have a Christian background and other, backgrounds, but speaking to like the ones with a Christian background who went to church and have the experience of that pastor was horrible. Like, you know what I mean? Like, time to go, change it up, freshen up the vibes, whatever. Like, it's a new day, it's a new age. Like, those of us who grew up in the church and complain about the dryness, it's the same thing with politics and politicians and local. Like, you can't be too mad at the people. People, like mass crowds and audiences and all that, like, they kind of operate the same kind of way. Like, if the under like the principles of the theory of how mass groups operate and think just kind of doesn't change that much over time. Like, maybe some cultural things might change, but for the most part, like, people are skeptical, people need to be convinced, people need to feel that they connect. People like charisma, but they also like results and like actual proof. So people also need to feel like on the same level, but at the same time that someone's leading them truly and not like their peer exactly. So I think that there's just been a certain type of culture established for a long time, and people have been operating in that culture. The leaders of the culture have been delivering messages in a certain way and doing outreach in a certain way, and then society has been taking in politicians in a certain way. I think for the shift to occur, politicians need to shift the way that they engage with the public, and the public needs to be more educated in the political process.
That education, I think, is the piece that we're missing societally. And that's kind of why I brought it up, is because I feel like since we're also drawn to the socials, we're also drawn to these type of publications. People like you who kind of create those stories are critical in kind of getting people interested, at least. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
No, you're right. It is my job. Like, it honestly is my job. And that is, I guess, why I'm here, because I am an artist in politics. Like, I am not a politician. So while I'm in this political space, I'm an artist in politics. And I believe that I was chosen because of that, because I'm coming with an art background. I'm coming with a design background. I'm coming with really what is interesting, or with the mind of what the people need to see and feel, because I'm an artist, and that's always pretty much where I'm going to reside, in that space of how does it impact the people? What are we really saying here? Are we telling the truth, or how can this be explained better in a way that makes sense to people? The artist is, generally always thinking about like the people, and like the stories of the humans, and so more of that in politics, I think, is also needed, and not just people like me, but also people like you who care about this stuff.
Yeah, I try, trust me.
Yeah, this podcast, like, it's not just the people who are in government and politics working those jobs. It's also people like, honestly, you two, who are passionate about your community being elevated. It's like, okay, what can I do in my storytelling, on my show, on my platforms, to just like lift up the psyche a little bit, get people seeing that exactly what you said, Benz. Local politics actually matters a whole lot more, and you could actually affect some real change on the local level. You just get a little bit active. You don't have to be super active, but just a little bit active, and you can make some change, or be aware of whatever nonsense that's going on around you.
And I feel like it just takes one more level of being engaged for the average person. Just one more step of being engaged.
So.
One more article. It's not hard to do.
I think so.
And then, like, for example, I can remember the Obama infrastructure deal was this conversation. And then I remember Maryland getting some money. I remember it was a big, what are we going to do with the money? And then I can remember my neighborhood, I live in Owings Mills. And so in Owings Mills, the subway station, they decide, okay, we're going to get Obama infrastructure money, we'll put a subway station. And in a couple of years, it didn't happen. And eventually they built a little something over there. And now 10 years later, section over section is now a whole complex over there. And the whole area is now rebuilt. The whole Reisterstown area is now rebuilt from that one thing. And I remember the process going down. And I feel like people
You're tracking that.
Yeah. And I feel like but it wasn't even purposefully. It's more so just being engaged in what's going on. I said, oh, that's my neighborhood. So let me pay attention to what's going on with this particular bit of money they're putting down. And just over years, driving through, I can see, oh, this one seed that was planted from the federal government down to the state government Now it's only now the private side is doing around it. And so I watched the whole process play out right in front of me. I feel like everybody can do that. They just choose not to.
They choose not to. Yeah, they choose not to. You're right. They choose not to. Why do you think they choose not to?
So I was going to interject and just say, I think we get so caught up in our own personal lives, you know, individually with so much heavy stuff going on. I'm trying to pay bills. I'm trying to be a parent. I'm trying to do this, and that. I'm in traffic all day. Like once you get home, you don't really have enough bandwidth to go that extra mile to really pay attention. So you should look at through it from a scarcity lens or a lens of trauma or a lens of like, I'm in survival mode right now. Like once I get to a place where I got a little bit more time, well, I think I'm gonna spend it on going on a trip where I don't have to think about all this. You know what I'm saying? So that's the easy thing to do though, you know, but it's also easy not to do.
Oh no, but what you're saying is
that's right.
Yes, I feel like that's 100% the truth, Bennett, and that's because I personally find politics interesting.
Yeah.
So when I'm done doing my real work, I don't mind watching CNN or whatever the case, like you said earlier. Some people want to watch the Kardashians, so that's what they want to do with their free time. And so I'm not knocking it. Yeah. But I'm just saying there are things out here that we can do with that free time that we have. We can still use to be more productive, at least not even more productive, more involved, engaged in our communities and learning about what's going on around us. That's all.
Yeah, and it matters. You know, I think what the reminder that's needed is what is the value of that information? We are bombarded every day with loads of information. It is mostly an unhealthy amount of information that we're all subjected to. And so the value and the quality of the information like gets reduced over time and it gets confusing. So I think what something people are struggling with is like, well, what is the value of watching CNN or the value of watching whatever, you know, this news thing, when we're also talking in a context of a media that's like, there's a lot of twisted things with the media thing, you know, so people sort of like need like a reset on media. Can I trust media? You know, but I think the power of the podcast is that these are fresh media outlets. Your show is a fresh media outlet. It does not have the history of the other media outlets that we all know. So there's a lot of opportunity for podcasters right now to help elevate the psyche because fresh channels.
And at the end of the day, you end up gravitating toward what you know your tribe or your channel, right? You know, your channel for whatever season in life you're at right now, because you know those channels change.
True.
Like
that's so true.
You know, people might be into reality TV at one point, then they get tired of it, and they're like, you know what, that's not serving me. Let me go and check this out.
So
like everything happens intentionally for a reason. I never 10 years ago would have thought I'd been on a podcast. Even 5 years ago, been like, oh, I'd have been a podcast host.
Oh, really?
But nah,
even 5 years ago. Interesting.
That was never an aspiration of mine, or to even be in media. I mean, I always admired like actors, like your Denzels, your Tom Cruises. I mean, your Tom Hankses, people that like evoke emotion and that are timeless. So I always said I'll be in a commercial or I'll be in some kind of thespian role. Just to say I did it, like to cross it off my bucket list. But I wouldn't have thought I'd be a podcaster. So I appreciate you recognizing that we are a viable media outlet for folks.
Big time.
Information and to hear stories. Like that's why you're here, you know?
Yes, big time. Yeah, I mean, I think your show helps to remind us of the value of good quality, authentic, true information.
And we got and you spoke on earlier. I think what the podcast what the podcast in general will do is provide those lesser heard voices the platform.
Yeah.
Because we're all old enough to remember the only news you got at one point in time was the 6 o'clock with Tom Brokaw. And that's the only news you got all day long. And,
that's right.
And so like if Tom Brokaw didn't have time to cover it, your story wouldn't be heard.
That's
And
right.
so now the local people, ethnic people, smaller groups all have their own place and ability to spread their story.
Absolutely.
So
That's right.
I think just the genre, the voice that it gives people, is a beautiful thing. So
It is. It really is.
Yeah, for me personally, coming from like Ben's, we all rock with sports. Seeing all these former athletes tell their side of
Yeah.
the story is dope to me. Like here, like
I
I was
love it.
my man that left the bubble early that was playing Lou
it's about
Williams. Lou Williams situation. So he gave the actual like what was going on. I'm like, hold up, that's not how the media, that's not how TMZ reported it. They were looking for that salacious story. Oh, he left the bubble. He's compromising everyone's health over there. Nah, it didn't go nothing like that. But if he didn't, if I think it was on All the Smoke, if they didn't have that podcast outlet for people to share their stories, we would have never knew that.
Such
Now
a good
it's
point.
a couple years later, granted, but still you get that perspective and his story and his voice be heard the right way. So
that's a prime example because for that the media painted as he was doing something crazy. He says, "No, I was a team authorized situation." I mean,
right.
the story wasn't out, but I was in a team authorized situation. So what you said, 100% correct.
It's time for the truth tellers, So it's just like time for us to really be out here.
No.
Yeah. So I got another question for you. So the young digital artists out there, who loves art, and I know art's historically always been a thing where I love my art, but I don't know how to make money from it. The young digital creator out there who wants to turn this into a career, what advice would you have for them?
That's such a great question. Well, I will say this is the absolute best time to do it. Like digital marketing, digital art, digital creation, this thing is still very super new. It's super new, but there's like so many examples and pathways out there. So yeah, the first thing is like you're in prime time. The world is your oyster. I will also say like start with just kind of have a rough idea of what you want to do. Like be honest and true about that, all of your interests, and know that it's just going to make sense over time. Like I started out truly, truly, truly wanting to be an architect, and then I was not good at math and all of that stuff. So I was like, okay, interior design. And then I didn't get accepted the first time I applied to the interior design program. I didn't get accepted. My portfolio wasn't strong enough. So I was like, bleh. And then I had to do like enrichment and like a portfolio development course in order to like reapply. So I did that. But when I did that course for a year, it exposed me to graphic design. So then and animation. So at that point, I had all these options of like, do I want to go animation? Do I want to go interior design as I originally started? Or do I want to go graphic design? Like I've been now exposed to all of these options, disciplines of art that I didn't know. And so to the young artists, so I ended up choosing graphic design. I decided like interior design. I really liked what I liked about graphic design that I didn't have in interior was the letters and the words. I really like typography and all of the, just the graphicness of graphic design. Like I just really like that. And I also felt that I could come back to interior design in the future. Like I could be a Martha Stewart in my 60s, like just make some pillows, like really, like I could do that. So I'll say, yeah, digital artists, future digital artists, current junior digital artists, like you probably have a super passion thing that you're into that you're really good at, but you also probably have other things that pique your curiosity, and know that you can dibble and dabble into those. You may get a job in that, you may not, but like just continue to follow that curiosity, that passion. Stay really disciplined on like developing your craft, stay really, really good at that. Like work your tools, work your skills, work your strengths, and also be a great writer. Like designers and artists need to also write.
So when you say use your tools, I got one for you now. AI, is it going to kill your industry, or is it going to be help the industry?
It's going to help the industry. It's going to make the industry greater and greater, just as other tools have done that. Every time a new tool is introduced to society, I'm like historical. I'm old, guys. So I'm just like, I always, my parents are old, like they're Caribbean. I just gotta just flag disclaimer. Like I come with this kind of old stuff all the time. But like really and truly, anything new that's introduced into society, it's like there's this threat of like it's gonna take over. And so yeah, artists are like, oh my gosh, like robots are designing for us. This is insane. Like we're gonna lose our ability to know. The robots respond to us. We make the robots. They are our tools, and we made them to help us process faster because we are actually processing faster as human beings. We're spitting things out like this, and we need our tools to actually keep up with us. And so there was a time like we made a mouse, right? Like before the mouse, there was something else, our hand. So we made the mouse to like move our words faster. That was crazy at the time. And the internet's not even that old. So, I just feel that on one hand, yeah, as a designer, it's like, dang, like I gotta sharpen, like I quickly feel archaic. And so there is that feeling of like, oh my gosh, it's taking over. No, it's not taking over. We are in the process of evolution, and that's what it feels like. And for every group that has ever experienced a new technology, it's always felt like we're gonna like lose, but it's not.
I took a sociology class years ago where you had to interview someone from a previous generation just about life. And I work at a retirement home, so I talked to one of my OGs, and he's like 85-year-old guy. He was going through the maturation process of what you just talked about, how mass
Mm-hmm.
newspapers were going to ruin everything with misinformation. Then you introduced the radio, and the radio was going to be so bad, and this is that. You sit too close to the TV, it's melting your brain away. And then video games, like we always have this knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, it's going to be the end of the world. Let's not even talk about Y2K, how we was all supposed to be gone right now. You know what I'm saying?
Gone.
Um,
We're four,
yeah,
how many years later?
like the one
24.
word that you use though is evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to evolve and pivot, right? You kind of
Mm-hmm.
talked about that in your personal life, how you needed to pivot. Um,
Yep.
always sharpening your tools, sharpening your skills. Um, talk about the importance of that, being resilient and pivoting in certain areas
Mm-hmm.
of life, and how that serves you as your professional space, on your art space. Like just talk
Mm-hmm.
about that pivot,
Yeah.
how strong that is.
Yeah. Well, I think being a product of immigrant people to Canada, I've seen that resilience thing from a young age.
Mm,
So my parents, coming from the Caribbean to Montreal, and at that time when they immigrated to Montreal, the weather was really bad there. We were not in climate change yet at that point.
mm,
So it was like I heard their complaints of just like, what the, is this? Like, so having to see that resilience and then myself being from Montreal as a, like as a black person there, you feel the cold. Like it's cold. Like it's not cold, You hate it all the time. So, in preparation for the winter, you get yourself into a spirit of resilience anyway. You just do, and obviously, as a Black person in North America, you're always in that spirit of resilience anyway because of the history and stuff. But I'll say specifically from my experience, it's like yeah, I think I've just always been in a flow of having to get ready for some type of thing to be resilient for the next thing because winter's coming, and trials are coming, and being like I said, being product of immigrant parents, they talk about the hardships, they talk about how life was back home, and so you're almost programmed and wired to be resilient and to know that there's going to be multiple points in your life where you got to be resilient. So moving to the States for me was the first level of like, okay, being resilient, like leaving everything behind, still with the cord and the connection, but like planting brand new, just like my parents did. And then thinking that, okay, I got this picture, it's all set up, like cool, cool, cool. Yeah, sure. I gotta be resilient, but like you don't really activate resilience until you're faced with a crisis. So yeah, I get married, like think it's all gonna be great and all good. Like my life is the picture thing, and it's just not going well, and I believe in being true to who you are. Like that's me, that's my energy, that's my whole thing, is just like it has to be real and true, or you're living a lie. And it doesn't feel good on the inside to lie to ourselves. So when I was in my marriage, not feeling it and not connecting, like I felt like I was living a lie. And even though the picture was to be a mom in a two-parent household in this like situation that I imagine, I was like, but it feels like a lie. So time to like put on the resiliency battery pack, like let's go, you know. And so it was like that was another experience of like having to put on that to engage resilience in my life. And I think just operating as an immigrant here, that resilience thing is just always active anyway, because I'm not from here. And so I'm always kind of needing to be resilient. But yeah, that was a big period of having to shift. But it was in the name of being authentic. It was in the name of being true and honest. It was also in the spirit of like, I wanted my son to see me at my best and high self, like most of the time. And in that marriage, I wasn't. So that was really important. And it's the same thing for jobs and careers and like, yeah, opportunities. If it's not the right thing, I'm going to switch and change. But I've been fortunate enough in my career, my jobs, to like have had really great experiences and to be able to blend design, art, creativity, multimedia, words, uh, public figures, public messaging into like one thing. I've been able to do that. And when I worked for a humanitarian organization, that was another realm of seeing resilience on a global scale, because I saw countries, we had to respond to earthquakes and typhoons and stuff like that. And I would write stories about that stuff. So I got to witness resilience on a human, like a global human level. And so the story of Governor Westmore has been one that's been interesting to me because like his whole thing is about that resilience. You know, lost his dad at a young age. His mom is from Jamaica. So that story of resilience like really resonates with me. And I feel that we're in a time now of all of us needing to activate our resilience battery packs. You know, America is in a difficult time and we're still in a post-pandemic period where it's like, what just happened? Getting our lives back together. So yeah, I really lean into inner truth and leaning on that battery pack of resilience that's just naturally there.
Talk about resiliency. Earlier, when you told the story of your parents, I thought about the move and the cultural aspect, the language aspect. I didn't think about the weather. Going from the Caribbean to Montreal. Oh no, that's no. Oh no.
It was horrible for them. Like they will talk about it, and then the cousin or aunts and stuff from that time, those baby boomers. Oh, when you get them in the story, they talk like it's still, they could feel the cold in their bones. It was not nice. They were like, when we were growing up, you know, we would complain about the snow and stuff like that, and they would just talk about how much they didn't have when they moved here, how they had to endure not having the proper coat, not having the proper shoes, you know, having to rely on strangers and stuff. And they're coming from lush life, like picking mangoes from the tree and walking to the beach, like to then. So it was a lot.
Hey, not to get too political, but in this current immigration hot topic world, anybody who wants to transport themselves and their family and come all the way to this great country or even Canada and start a brand new life is better than me. So I have no problem with those people. Do your thing. Be contributors to society. Bring what you got from wherever you come from and contribute to the new society. I'm with it because that's that journey of it's something that we would never do. As much as we complain about how we dislike the country, you never pack your family up and move somewhere else.
But the narrative here, when immigrants come, they make it seem like it's so easy. Oh, they're just coming here to like they had to go through a lot. That process was not easy to
and
come
like I
here
said,
and just, you know, and be in a position less than you are.
That's right.
Check to check, right? And you sitting there trying to glorify them, like talk about how they you know mooching off the system or they need to go back where they come from. Like celebrate the fact that they had to go through that process, and we don't make that process easy for depending on who it is. Actually, we're not even gonna get into all that, but
but I mean, me as a Canadian, it was not easy. That's not an easy process. People assume that it's easy, and it's like you just walk in. You can't. It's not a walk-in situation. It is not. I'm very fortunate that it worked out for me, but it does not work out for a lot of people.
Yeah. Hey man, I'll just say, like I said, I'll say in closing to that piece, for as much as we complain, and this like things are going on in this good country. I ain't heard I had never one person say I'm packing up my family, moving to Uzbekistan. Never,
That's right.
never heard that. So
Right.
That was.
it's like for people that do come here, we have something
You're
special here.
right.
We have something special
No,
here,
it is.
and so therefore we need to work our best to make it work.
I agree. There is something special here. I'm here because I was attracted to America, and I'm still here because I like America. Even though you're right, it's like, we complain about it, but it's like there is something special here. Thank you
No,
guys for having me on the show.
how about to say your socials still pay so much homage to Quebec, though. I mean to
Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah, I'm in that zone now. Like my page goes through waves, but like right now I'm in the zone of like Vive le Quebec. I'm in Montreal
Mhm.
zone because I also just want to educate my American friends. That's also part of it. It's just like you want to know me, like this is me, but also there's this really great city not too far, guys. Like go check it out. It's part of your great North America here.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming. It's been a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? Any type of parting words for the people that you would have?
No, I just say thank you so much for having me on this show. I think it's such a great platform. Like I said earlier, I want to emphasize like you are doing great work here by creating a media channel, a media outlet where you're elevating high values in our community. And this is a great work. You're doing the same type of work that all the big media outlets are doing. And so just continue on. And those of you who are listening and have your own platforms, in your own way, even if you got 2 followers or 0 followers, whatever, like there's somebody listening to you, and just keep speaking, keep sharing, because we're all media outlets in our own way, and now's the time to share our stories.
Thank you.
We'll end on this. Speaking of stories, we didn't get to it in the podcast, but Erykah was a guest or a patron at our second annual Juneteenth Black Business Expo. She was just out there patronizing folks, supporting some of the businesses. It was a whole vibe. If you were at our Juneteenth Expo, you know how we do at
It
E.I.G.
was so great.
But Governor to be Westmore and
Yeah.
a couple of his constituents were there, on the campaign trail, just checking out what we had going on. And then
Mhm.
fast forward, y'all didn't meet each other then. You didn't even know he was there.
No.
I told you
Was he
afterwards.
there? So was he there that day? He was there that day?
That was the only
That
day we
day?
had
Yeah,
the
yeah,
expo.
yeah, 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 yeah. But he was
And
there. I do
fast
remember
forward a
that.
year later, you went through that
Yeah.
process, threw your name in the hat, and then now you're part of his delegate. So
Yeah,
super
yeah, there was a
dope.
strong connection there.
Um,
Yeah, I remember that event. I went crazy shopping. It was so fun. I felt like a kid in a candy store. I super support that event. I need to come back this year, but like I still have the things that I bought from that event, but more special from there. Yes, I have a really good friend that I've developed from there. We met at a food truck, Aisha Summers, and like we are part of like a mom group of friends. And yeah, it's from that time that
what?
I met her. And yeah, I don't know if she was a vendor there, but
This
she
was a
definitely
vendor.
was. Yeah, she was a
Aisha and
vendor.
I
Yeah.
used to work together. She was in the pharmacy field.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. Yep, yep. We
Yeah, we're
worked
still
at
good
a long-term
friends.
care pharmacy years ago. She pivoted and started doing other things and consulting, and then she was at that expo, and that's dope. Look at
Yeah, I saw her like 3 weeks ago.
that's what's
That
up.
story made me so happy just because we always focus on the business side of the stuff
Mhm.
that we do, but the personal connections and the networking is by far more important. And so
Community,
I'm happy you shared
Amazing.
that with me. I appreciate that.
community.
Yeah, yeah. No, y'all are special. Really, there is a light on you. There really, really is. Keep going.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Erykah, again.
Awesome. Well, thank
Your
you.
unofficial chief of staff. Always
Thank you so always and forever.
important everything that you do. You are a light. It takes a light to see a light. So you are definitely a light. Keep doing what you're doing, sharing these important stories, and
Thank
you
you.
inspire us. We'll continue to do the same. My Benz
Great.
and
Thank you
I
so
were
much.
only 2 of 12 Black men who are building a legacy bigger than ourselves
Hmm.
through building community. Really,
That's right. You are.
like Ben said, that's the overarching theme of what we do. So thank you
Mhm.
all again for listening, supporting. And go follow Erykah. We'll put her socials and how you can contact her and support the good work that she's doing. But yeah, until next time, au revoir.
Hi. Au
Good.
revoir.
Peace.
Salut.
Thank you so much, Erykah.